Good morning. Thanks everybody for joining today. Um, it's an earlier meeting scheduled than usual because we now have somebody on the East Coast and somebody in Central and half the year people on Pacific. So we try to respect everybody's time. Calling the meeting to order, I'm going to kick it over to Greg Collins, our secretary.
Thank you, Stacy. Just want to let you know that the meeting has been properly noticed and we do have a quorum. And also, you have minutes for your review, and feel free to go ahead and take care of those.
Okay, we've reviewed the minutes of November 15th. I move that we approve those. Do we have a second?
Second.
Aye.
Favor?
Aye.
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 Everybody?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Stacy. So noted.
So our meeting today, we have a few updates. We're going to discuss the ongoing topic of our short-term rentals. We have some policy matters to review. But I'm going to get started first with our guest. Our guest is Andy Van Gilder. He is from USI, our insurance company. He is fairly new to the Tamarron account. Our most recent contact, who you guys have seen at a couple of meetings if you've attended, Shadia, has moved to a different role. So we welcome Andy and appreciate his being here today. He's going to take a property tour after our meeting and really get to know Tamarron. But he has an update for you. So I will hand it to Andy.
All right, thanks, Stacy. Appreciate the opportunity to meet everyone and really working on your account here. It's a really nice little piece of business for us, and I know Shadia has spent a lot of time with everyone. Is this?
You can just probably
Okay. So a little bit of background.
I'm sorry, Gary, can you show the presentation, please?
Ready for that? This is why I say you might have to.
I see it. There it is. And we can move down to the first screen.
Hang on 1 second.
Just indicate to Gary when you're ready. You can move to the next one. You can work off of that if it's easier. You can work off of that if it's easier than looking both places.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Yep. So a quick overview of who I am. I'm a senior VP with USI. I kind of lead our real estate practice out of Denver. Been in the industry for over 30 years. Our family agency, actually Van Gilder Insurance, was the one that sold to USI about 12 years ago. And that's how USI came to be in the Colorado region. The majority of my book of business is in real estate. Like I said, I lead our real estate practice, and I've worked on the insurance carrier side. I've worked over in London. I've worked for a large international broker, and then for the last 30 years, been working retail, kind of doing this practice here. So happy to connect with any of you. If you've got this proposal, my contact information is at the end, and we can happy to connect with you with any questions you have. Gary, you want to move over there? So just a quick overview of the state of the market. So historically, the industry kind of goes in cycles. We call it a soft market when prices are really low. We're able to get really broad coverages. There's fewer competitors. There's more competitors, more capacity. And then there's the hard market, which is what we've been in the last 5 years on the property side. So there's less insurance competitors, pricing goes up significantly, as you've seen. There's reduced capacity and typically reduced coverages. So Gary, can you go to the next page there? So we send out an addendum every year, kind of projecting what we think the market is going to do, reflecting on what we've done in the past 6 months, not we, but the industry. So the industry is starting to soften, which is great. There's two different parts of the industry. There's the admitted markets, which is like a Travelers or a Chubb, carriers you might be familiar with. And then there's the non-admitted markets, which is also referred to as surplus lines. Those two don't always go in sync. Your insurance is primarily in the surplus lines market. So that market has seen the hardest premiums, as well as we're also seeing it more on the aggressive soft side there as well. So over the last year, we've started to see prices go down dramatically on the property side, less so on the liability side, and the umbrella side is actually kind of going through a bit of a hard market itself. But we project this year that we'll probably see somewhere between a 5 to 20% reduction in the property premium. Liability will probably be flat, and then the umbrella might see a slight increase on that. Go to the next one, Gary. So as I mentioned before, expecting some rate softening in there. The interesting thing for us in Colorado, Colorado happens to be one of the 2 or 3 worst states for property insurance. We have the combination of convective storms, hail, as well as the wildfire exposure. And certainly the property here is very exposed to wildfire. We've had, knock on wood, a fairly decent last couple of years from a loss perspective within the insurance community. I'm very concerned about the dryness that we are experiencing right now, what that could lead to. So knock on wood, we don't have a really bad spring, and we'll see where the market goes from there. There's a couple House bills in Colorado that could potentially impact the insurance world. The first one is HB 251182, which is basically requiring the use of the information sharing with clients about risk modeling. So this became law last year in May, still to be determined. It doesn't actually go into effect until this summer, July. Unless there's some referendum about that. But basically, risk model use in property insurance policies is the terminology. So the key provisions there is that any mitigation discount or transparency that an insurance carrier might use based on risk modeling needs to be disclosed to clients. Risk score disclosure as well. There is an appeal process. There are modeling requirements if the insurance carrier uses modeling that they need to account for. And then the goals is the accountability for the insurance carriers and how they use that. Gary, the next page, please. The next one is House Bill 251382. This was creating basically a reinsurance model, which you might be familiar with the FAIR Plan in California or the wind and flood coverage in Florida. However, this one did not pass, so it will not. It died in committee last May. So from a marketing standpoint, and we are starting our process already for the organization, there are a number of favorable factors that you can look forward to. Your risk mitigation work that you've done over the last few years has been tremendous. That really helps us tell a great story with the market. The capital investments that you put into it as well, really, really favorable compared to your peers. And then fully sprinklered is huge in this area. The updated roofs is really, really positive. You do have some fairly good fire scores for here relative to other mountain areas. So High Point has 53, Gamble Oak has a 69, Pinecone has a 74. So those are all relatively favorable. Compare that to other scores in the area where they're going to be in the upper 80s and mid 90s. 100 is probably the worst you can get to on that. So fairly favorable there. Some headwinds that that work against us. Unfortunately, the amount of short-term rentals, the ratio there is concerning. It hampers us a little bit in the marketplace. The total valuation, around 100 million valuation, just creates challenges with carriers. If you remember last year's renewal, the last few years, we've had a number of insurance carriers attached to it in a bit of a quota share or layered market, and that's to get to the full capacity of 100 million. Frame construction is a big one. Not much we can do about that. The mountain and forest exposures, obviously, wildfire just in general, as I talked about, and then the age of the buildings, 1974. There's really not a ton of things we can do about that. The short-term rentals are really the only things that you can control in that. But I think the favorable factors that are in your control, you've taken advantage of and move forward on that. And I know you have a number of mitigation planning, and that's critical ongoing work in that area there. So I've got a number of those that are on there. I think the 5-year plan for upgrading the fire protection system is huge. The new roofs has been great. Your partnership with the neighboring communities, the work that you do with the Gulf community around here, all of that lends itself to both the lowered fire scores as well as the impact with the insurance underwriters. Next one, Gary. So this is your current program design. If you remember last year, the year before, you had a loss limit of about $75 million. Did not fully cover the buildings. That can be very detrimental, and a complete loss could also be challenging with any lenders that are out there. However, last year we were able to obtain a full program covering full replacement cost on this, as well as lowering the premiums on there. So it covers almost 95 million in limits, and a fairly favorable rate, just under $1 rate on that. Total premium on the property is just south of $950,000. Just a reminder about loss assessments, the importance of that. So the association has the ability to assess the members, and then the members have the ability to attain insurance within their HO6 policies or HO4s, whichever ones you're using. And you can build in loss assessment coverage in there. Now, it has to be due to the trigger for that with your carriers has to do with direct physical loss. So a fire or hail, something like that, which would trigger insurance coverage and a large deductible that might also trigger the loss assessment. That's the trigger for the insurance carriers as well on the homeowners there. So just a reminder about that. And the last section in here is just talking about giving you some guidance on how to address the loss assessment with your personal lines insurance carriers. So happy to answer any questions now. Did I cover anything? Anything else you want me to hit, Stacy?
Well, I have a couple questions, but let's let everybody else go first. Does anybody in the room have a question for Andy? No. How about anybody online?
I have a question, Stace. You have
Okay,
when you're ready.
go ahead.
So we know the short-term thing exists, and it's a moving target, moving number. Is there anything absent, being able to adjust that ratio or eliminating it that we can do with short-term rentals to help reduce the cost associated with the risk that is applied to them?
The short-term rentals have a small impact on the property, which is your big driver of premium. There is some financial impact on there, but aside from eliminating it altogether, there's not a whole lot we can do right now. The concern is if that ratio starts to increase to a point where our general liability and umbrella carriers do not want to participate anymore. So we're getting close to that ratio there. Restrictions around that could be very, very important going forward. If we lose our insurance carrier on the general liability piece, we could see premiums double in that arena.
Andy?
Yeah.
Is, from an insurance standpoint, is there a difference between having short-term renters and long-term renters?
There is. The short-term renters have they create more liability piece of it, and they have some impact on the property piece. But like I said, the financial impact on the property is small. Wildfire is your big driver of your premium, so they don't really impact that. The liability piece is the one I get more concerned with. Short-term renters have less regard for property. They're unfamiliar with it, so there's more of a trip and fall hazard that might be apparent there. Scott, did that
Given the
answer?
number of room nights, well, yeah. I mean, it kind of answers it. I mean, that's where we're going here. Given the number of room nights that we have, is there any concept of I'll just call it an add-on liability type thing that we might be able to use for the renters where they pay $5 a night or something like that for additional liability coverage? And I don't know if it exists. Joe, what was our room nights last year? It's a lot.
What was our what, Scott?
Our room nights, rental
I
room
don't
nights.
have that.
We've been over, I have that. We've been over 10,000 nights
10,000.
a year.
That's what I
Yeah,
had in my brain.
but not up to 11,000, but in between.
Yeah, I just wonder if there's any kind of supplemental type coverage charge, something that we might be able to obtain. I don't know if it exists or not. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, there are, Scott, that's a good question. We're starting to explore little add-ons on that. I know services like a VRBO, they do have the opportunity to purchase that coverage. So if your owners are using those services, they can make that either an option or they can force that. So that might be an avenue to go. There's a little bit of coverage in there. I think they cover up to $100,000 in liability. And then they have some property coverage as well. So glad that turned off that.
Yeah.
So we don't have anything that has been readily attached to the program. We do have some programs that we use for apartment owners called tenant legal liability. It's an interesting concept, and that may be something for us to explore. That ends up being essentially about $15 a month per unit, of which there's actually a revenue share in there. So that may be a concept that we could explore here. I don't know how that would apply to condos. That's more designed towards tenants of apartments that don't have their own personal lines insurance that would cover their liability towards the property owners. But I can explore that for you, Scott.
Andrew, you
Okay, thanks.
I am, thank you.
Interesting. And yeah, we can talk about that this spring, Andy.
Yep.
Okay, does anybody else have a question? No. Okay, my questions. How often are the fire scores updated?
They're updated about annually. So we don't have any control over that. That's done from a national service.
And is it still CoreLogic that most people use? Is that the company?
CoreLogic we use for valuations, and I believe that's who we're using for scores as well.
Okay, how do they update? Like we did $100,000 of fire mitigation last year. How do they know that?
They wouldn't.
Uh-huh.
The mechanism for you is to appeal back to it. Part of the House Bill 1182 is the opportunity to appeal. I believe you addressed a letter to the governing bodies last year as
Mhm.
well, or was that 2 years ago?
Yeah, both.
Yeah, so that's a mechanism to do that. This House bill should create more urgency for them to address that.
And does USI do that appealing for us?
We don't have the ability to do that. We can provide you guidance on that, but you have to appeal directly to them.
Okay. Yeah, we might be interested in that guidance, so.
I just reprint that letter that you did. It was really good.
Then my other question is on our insurance layers, and we've been in this ladder with our coverage for a long time, and I just haven't asked this before. But on our second tier, we have, Munich has 25%, Golden Bear has 33%. It's divided between 4 companies. So if we have a loss that's between 10 and 40 million, how do those companies divvy up responsibility?
It's driven by Lexington. So Lexington, all those carriers kind of buy in to an insurance adjuster, third-party administrator. And so they're basically just following whatever the insurance adjuster gets to. And so if it goes into that second layer, they have an agreement to, if it's an additional 2 million in that layer, they have a percentage of that and they write a check to that.
Okay.
So your check you don't receive one check, you would receive a check from each carrier.
Mhm.
So unfortunately, you probably don't get paid all at the same time. But you would get essentially 5 checks once it gets through Lexington and goes to those other 4.
Okay, so it's administered by Lexington.
Yep.
Okay,
Well, it's actually administered by the TPA, but Lexington's form is what drives it.
okay. Well,
And
hopefully we'll never
they
find
would-
out.
Yeah, knock on wood, you never have to experience that. That actually is the area where we think we're going to see some improvement in the property. Would you pull that back up?
Sure.
You still have it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so right now, that second layer, we have 4 carriers participating. That's what we call quota share versus the first layer, Lexington. Then we have the quota share, and then we have 2 other carriers. Those are called layers, right? So quota share, 4 carriers participating in that second layer. What we anticipate this year, where we're seeing advantages in pricing, is that carriers have more capacity and they want to get more premium. And so we somewhat play it off of each other, and we'll probably carve out one of those quota share insurance carriers, give the others more capacity. And so they're able to get more premium. But by getting more capacity, we're able to compress that rate a little bit. And then Lexington may move up a little bit. So they may move up to, say, 15 or 20 million. And so we start to compress the layers as well. So those are some of the opportunities with the changing market that gives us a chance to achieve some premium advantages.
Good. Great, thank you. All right, if there's nothing else for Andy. Okay,
I have a question. We've talked about how certain states are affected and certain states are more prone to increases or whatever. Are the states further segmented into regions? And the point of the question is, if there's a wildfire on the Front Range, like they had a few years ago, I think it was the Hayman fire or something, how does that affect us?
That affects you more from a reinsurance aspect. Certainly the dryness of the state, and you can't just wildfires are not going to adhere to state borders, obviously,
No.
right? They're gonna go anywhere, but we start to see regions that are drier than others, that are more prone to it. The fire mitigation aspect is driven by states, right? So Colorado's a little bit more aggressive on fire mitigation than, say, California, for instance. And so Colorado has looked more favorably compared to Colorado or to California. But fire on the Front Range would only raise the interest level for areas on the Western Range as well. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Andy, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
We'll see you after the meeting for our
Okay.
property tour and
Look
lunch.
forward to it.
And
you.
Carlos, can you help Andy find a place to work?
And if you have that PowerPoint, my contact information is on there, so please reach out if I can help you with anything.
Stacy.
Hmm?
Do you want that PowerPoint posted on the website or on the building?
I think a lot of the information is in our insurance letters, so I was gonna look at those first, but I think that'd be fine. Okay, we moved unfinished business up to the top of the agenda because Scott was gonna be traveling and he changed his plans yesterday, but we'll keep it at the top of the agenda. And that is our discussion on short-term rentals. The first thing I learned, I did some historical fact checking. Just why it seemed kind of suddenly last summer. I was so many people started complaining to me about this, and one thing I learned is in 2018 and 2019 we were in the 6,000 nights a year range for short-term rentals. 2020, not surprisingly, it went up to 10,000. Everybody was working remotely. They thought, let's go work from a beautiful place instead of, my home in Texas. And so it's not surprising that we saw a 67% increase in the number of nights in 2020. However, that never went down. As people went back to the office, our number of nights have stayed in the 10,000 range. So that's one thing I learned. Another thing is I looked at the fee history. When this fee started, in 2017 or 2018, as far as the nightly resort fee, because that's when our contract with Glacier was signed and they started passing through the majority of the resort fee, but Tamarron tacked on to that. Tamarron's portion was $9 a night that it retained from the fee. I believe it was 8 something in 2018 and a flat 9 in 2019. But then as Glacier increased their share every year, we never went up. So we let our portion of that fee decrease until it was, I think most recently, $2 a night. So in going up to the $40 a night resort fee, Glacier gets their share. We're keeping $9.71 a night, which is almost equivalent to what we were keeping in 2019. So I just thought that was an interesting history. Another thing is, Scott raised some good questions about, there are a lot of complaints about renters. I shared my personal experience, which we don't need to hear about again. But just some egregious behavior, some, violations. But Scott raised the point of let's quantify that. Let's get the facts. So for rules and regs, we have opened up a new violation type called guest on property not following Tamarron policies. And that can be renters, that could be guests, that could be housekeepers. The details would be in the violation, but that lets us pull data from the system to be sure that we are looking at facts. And what kind of facts are we looking at? What are the repeated violations? What are the repeated behaviors we're seeing that owners are uncomfortable with? So we've taken that step. We have a lot of complaints or concerns about housekeepers. Namely housekeepers. There are some violations with housekeeping, and that would be documented in the violations I just spoke to. But if there is a concern about housekeepers accessing a condo inappropriately, whether a neighbor might think the housekeeper is staying in a condo for a few days or having friends access the condo, whatever. I mean, I've heard a lot of these complaints lately. I just want to tell everyone, if you have that concern or you hear it from a neighbor that, hey, I see someone, in the condo next door, they've been there for 3 days. The appropriate course of action is to let the owner of that condo know, because it is the owner who engages a property manager or the housekeeper. It is not the association's housekeeper. We can't do anything. If someone has a guest in their condo, that's not up to us. If you think there's a law being broken or you feel unsafe because of what you see, the appropriate course of action is to call 911. It is not to ask our staff or maintenance to go to a condo and see if there's anything illegal going on. That falls under the category of our staff and maintenance don't do welfare checks. We don't investigate illegal behavior. That's the police. So I just want to say, if you are keeping an eye out and you have a concern about somebody accessing a property inappropriately, you call that owner, or you if you're think there's some illegal activity, call 911. It's not a taco matter. Our next steps, we have talked about putting together a committee to really kind of address what's going on as we're gathering these facts. We're going to do an owner survey to just find out, what do the owners feel? How many people are renting? How many people are encountering problems? What are those problems? Are they factual, or are they what you think is, that's a difference. We're going to include on there, would you be interested in serving on a committee that addresses this problem? And we'll be looking for committee members who are balanced, who understand both sides of the situation, who understand how the HOA works. A lot of people don't really understand our governance, but that's what we'll be looking for. And I hope that we have a number of people willing to step up and be considered for the committee. And once we have that survey, then that will kind of drive the committee mission statement. The survey plus some of the facts that we're going to be building in our system will really help us decide next steps. And Scott, I had you penciled in here on this topic. Was there anything that you wanted to add?
He just got on again, so you might have to repeat that.
Oh, I don't want to repeat it.
I heard your question. I was just trying to get on my computer.
Okay.
And
Did you
get
want
all-
to add anything, Scott?
No, I mean, I don't know, it doesn't look like there's a lot of people in the room, but obviously we addressed this somewhat ad nauseum on our last board meeting. We have always had a rental contingent, and several years ago, when COVID hit, we had a lot of talk of, we're going to have all these owners now and the renters are going to drop. People aren't going to be renting their units. And then the reality of bills came in, and HOA fees and insurance costs and everything else. And, what we've seen, to the point that you made, Stacy, is the room nights haven't really changed. So, renters are there. There's a lot of us that participate. And, as I've said for the last 12 years, I'm one of them. I think there's a balance here that we need to solve for, and we need to hear from both sides. I think a survey is a good place to start. I think it needs to be balanced. I do think we need to have additional conversations with property management companies. I specifically asked that question about the insurance because I know that is and I mean, trust me, I have properties outside of Tamaron and I have the same issue. If they're short-term rentals, you're going to get dinged for it. But if there are ancillary ways that, that we can mitigate the cost associated with that, we should explore it. Certainly the rules and regs, piece has come into play, but being able to track where they're coming from makes a lot of sense. We need to know who the infractions are coming from, and renters obviously don't have the same knowledge of rules and regs and don't have the same ability, or we don't have the same ability to police them. But we have, we have owners that screw up too. So I just think we need to, have a way to track that and then find a way to balance it. So I like the idea of a survey. I think we spend this year trying to go through the analysis and then try to come up with some ideas, before the end of the year.
Okay, yeah, great. So that's where we are. We're getting started. We've heard all sides of this, and we're gonna get to work on it. Next on the agenda is the ratification of the 2025 budget. We did not receive the protest, which is what, 60, 67%, 65%. If people protest the budget, and that was not received. I received questions, but because we didn't have that, we consider the 2025 budget ratified.
2026.
Sorry, 2026. Anytime it's January, I will say the wrong year. So thank you, Gary. I typed the wrong year on the agenda as well. 2026
Be a
budget.
problem down the road.
Yeah, Greg, make sure you catch that in the minutes.
That's you, Stacy.
Next up, we have the financial report from Joe Carey.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me all right there?
Yes.
All right, give me a second while I share my screen. I'm going to put up the year-end 2025 financial reports. That's the period we'll be reporting on. So as of December 31st of last year. Okay, gotta find it. Here we are. Okay. Can everybody see that all right? I might be able to enlarge. Yeah, there we go. All right. Okay. All right, so we're looking
Joe, you
at
might want to zoom in on that a bit.
all right, now it's shifted it. Hang on a second. Let me get rid of this. All right, I'm gonna have to go down one because well, wait a minute. Hold on. Let me see if I can do this. There we go. How's that?
Much better.
All right. So we're looking at the balance sheet for December, as of December 31st, or on December 31st, 2025. Those of you who have been paying more than just a passing amount of attention on these financial reports over the years, you may notice some differences in this report from previous ones. The reason for that is all of our accounting, bookkeeping, accounting, our reporting is all done through the new HOA software, Buildium now, and it does things a little bit differently than we're done with QuickBooks, which was the previous accounting platform we used. Somebody's talking, and if they could mute themselves, Gary, if you could figure who that is, maybe you could get them to mute themselves.
I just muted one.
Anyway, so the top of the balance sheet is our assets. We're looking pretty healthy from current assets, which speaks to cash flow. The one of the differences I mentioned is accounts receivable. You'll notice it's a negative number. It's never been a negative number before. That's not a bad thing. The reason for that is that Buildium recognizes revenues on the date they're due. So in the past, this report would show a large number there, and that would be the first quarter assessments that were billed in December, early December, but they're not due until January 31st. So in the January report, that number will show up. But now it's a negative number, and the reason it's a negative number is this represents owners who have already paid those assessments or had already paid them as of December 31st. Some owners pay as soon as they get their bills, and not very many, but that's what that number represents. Going down a little bit further, another item that is different from the past is this account 145 prepaid expenses. Buildium recognizes expenses that were paid ahead of when they're incurred. And this, most of what this is the deposit that we paid Big Cat Plumbing for the Pinecone sewer pipe relining project that'll happen this spring. So that's what that is. Scrolling down a little bit, our fixed assets, pretty self-explanatory. I always like to compare, if you'll note this number, our highlighting goes crazy on me. Our total current assets are a bit over $500,000. Again, we're in good shape there. One other thing I wanted to mention, our reserves. That's our current reserves. After I'm done with my report, I'm told John Mills is going to speak to our reserves performance over the past year. So I'll just leave that for him to talk to. But that's our current balance. The only other thing I'd like to point out is the comparison between total current assets and total current liabilities, and you can see the difference. Total current liabilities is much lower, which is a good thing. And that's the end of the balance sheet. And I'll go now to the income statement, profit and loss statement. This is a comparison of our revenue and spending as compared to budget. The left-hand column is the total for the year 2025, and the right-hand column is the budget for that same period. Total assessment income are these figures here, favorable to budget. And most of the reason for that is that we had the unbudgeted amount for the snow bars, for the special assessment for the snow bars that were put up on the roofs to prevent our chimneys and roof penetrations from being damaged by heavy snow, which we haven't had any. Going down a little further on income, you'll notice no revenue on this vending machines line. We have a new vendor for the the pop machines, and they've informed us that they don't pay commissions anymore. So we'll be removing that line from the budget. Again, just moving down, total income is favorable to budget, so we're in good shape there. Administrative expenses, big number is insurance. We're favorable to budget there. The reason we don't have any spending in accounting and tax preparation is because we have a new company, a new accounting firm that's doing our audits, and they're still working on our 2024 audit. They're much more attentive to detail, asking a lot of questions. There's been a lot of back and forth. So our 2024 audit is not yet complete. And if we don't have fully audited financials, then we can't do our taxes. So our tax preparer has been delaying that. We'll get there eventually. Coming down a little bit further, nothing much of note there. Everything's pretty good. Our total administrative expenses are favorable to budget, so we're in good shape there. Scrolling further, we're into personnel expenses. And again, favorable to budget. So we're looking good there. Operations expense, this is basically what it costs to keep our property well maintained and running smoothly. Over the last couple of years, we've struggled with our property's old. It's 50 years old plus. And it's costing more and more to maintain. Things are breaking down. A prime example is right here, the cast iron drain waste vent replacements. We went well over budget on that. We just had a rash of issues in 2025, and it continues to be an issue. The snow removal, we only spent half the budget to a very light snow year. So that helped keep the bottom line under control, but that's good news and bad news. Roof and ceiling repairs are a bit over budget. We asked Bobby at BHP to give us a list of why some of these areas and why some of these accounts in this category were somewhat significantly over budget. And he and Jessica did a good job of pulling together a list. I have it in front of me here, and it's very long. It's very long, very wordy, and so there's a lot of information. So I'm just going to provide some summary highlights. One of the things that happened with this particular item is that the stairwells in the lodge, the ceilings and all the stairwells in the north and south towers were in very bad shape and needed to be fixed. And that was a cost that we hadn't anticipated. So that's just one example there. Coming down to grounds looks pretty good. Coming down to plumbing in the common areas, that's over budget. There was BHP did a program this year where they replaced all of the backflow preventers property wide. That was a pretty expensive project. That's an example of what happened there. Scrolling down a little bit more, miscellaneous, this account 629. It's under budget, but the reason for that is we're trying to get a lot more lot more insight into where we're spending our money. So we moved a lot of things out of a miscellaneous category into more specific categories. And I'll point some of those out as we go down. So this being under budget here by 50% is a little bit of a smoke and mirrors thing. So I'll explain that as we go down further. One of them is account 640, fire sprinklers. You'll notice that's over budget. That's an offset from this account up here, 629, because we moved some of the activities, the maintenance functions from one category to the other. Let's see. Another one is account 677, which wasn't an account when we budgeted, but we wanted to zero in on some of the spending we were doing on electrical and appliances. And so that was moved over there. So that's another example. Bottom line is total operating expenses significantly unfavorable to budget. We think we've done a better job of budgeting for 2026. So we hope we'll have better control over that in the year to come. Utilities expense, water and sewer was the big issue on this one. We feel like the irrigation water over the summer usage of irrigation water was a bit out of control. We have old, dated, simple function irrigation controllers, and it's in the 2026 budget to put in smart controllers and have better control over our irrigation water, be able to control it remotely, and these new controllers will automatically shut our water down when it rains. So they tie into the weather reporting systems. So hopefully we'll be able to get that under better control. So total utilities expense is unfavorable to budget, but that's mostly because of the water and sewer category. Capital projects expense. Note that the fire alarm project, this was High Point. This was the High Point portion of the fire alarm project upgrade for remote reporting of our fire alarms. And this is under budget. This was originally quoted at $199,000 for that area by Durango Electric. They ended up billing us for this amount you see here. So I guess the assumption can be that while they gave us a quote for this amount, what they actually spent was this, and that's what they billed us for. So we came out ahead on that. The the roof penetrations, snow bars to protect the roof penetrations. This is the 91,000 that you saw up in revenue, so that offsets that. Unplanned capital expenses were significant this year. We budgeted 25,000, but we ended up with these three items. We received the revenue in 2024 for the new lock project. And then we spent the money in 2025 because that project was late getting the locks, getting them installed. So we took a hit. Well, we got the revenue in 2024. We didn't spend it until we didn't have incurred the cost until 2025. We had the trash collection company, Waste Management, damaged the dumpster building in Pinecone, so that had to be completely rebuilt at this cost. I believe we're still in the mode of trying to recover that money through Waste Management's insurance company. I don't know what the status of that is now, but perhaps Stacy or somebody can comment on that.
Yeah, the status is they're denying responsibility, and they have videos on the truck, but they won't let our insurance company see the videos. And you know, it's one of those, we could probably litigate it, but we'd spend a lot more than 18,000 trying to get them to show us the videos.
So that's a dead end.
It's a dead end insurance company not doing what they should. Our insurance company, USI, has a great claim department that will help us with these matters, and they think this is a very frustrating situation because it's really clear that and we even had a witness, but their insurance company denies responsibility and won't let USI see the videos. And it's not big enough for us to try to litigate just to get them to do the right thing.
Right. Yep. You got to pick your fights. Okay. And then this 20,720 here is the a sewer repair. One of the things that spurred doing the Pinecone complex-wide relining of the sewer laterals was we had a failure of one lateral in one part of in one area of the complex, and we had to get it fixed. So we called in the plumbing company, Big Cat Plumbing Company, and they repaired that one at $20,720 was the cost. But we're including that cost in the overall Pinecone special assessment, so that we'll actually recover that money when we collect the assessments. So total net income is a minus 52,259. I think from a standpoint of the things that were pointed out above, especially in the unplanned capital expenses, you can see where we had unbudgeted amounts. So I think we came out fairly well for the year on that, to have only that much of a loss. And the next, oh, there it is. Okay. And then here's our reserves. The main item here is that this $250,715 that was transferred out of reserves for the final payments on the roof project, the new roof project, in the early part of 2025. We had taken money, the bank that we had for that roof project, and instead of letting it sit in the bank while waiting to pay out the roofing company for the project, which covered 18 months to 2 years, we put that money in the reserve so we could realize better gains on it rather than having it sit in the bank for little to nothing. So we eventually had to pay that back, and so this is our current balance. You saw that on the balance sheet. And if John Mills is available to speak to this, I'll let him go ahead and talk about it, unless somebody has any questions on the financial statements overall.
Do we have any questions? Okay, John, do you want to?
Yeah, I was going to highlight real quick on the reserve funds. We achieved a really nice return and maintained liquidity, which is obviously key with the ins and outs that we've had from reserves. But last year we earned just over 4%, and predominantly we're invested in treasury money market funds. So we're taking very low risk when it comes to getting these returns. So I think that's why you're seeing some favorable numbers in terms of interest income for 2025. And I also looked at some projections for interest for next year. And as of right now, projecting about $13,500 in income off the reserves. Assuming the current balance, I know that's going to fluctuate, obviously. And then additionally, I would expect that we're looking at least 2 interest rate cuts this year. So that could affect the projections as well. So that's kind of the expected trend on interest rates. So that might be a little bit lower than what we have achieved last year, but was very, very pleased to see those numbers coming in at over 4%. And since taking over in 2023, we've managed to get a return of just around 4% year over year. So I know that's quite an improvement in what we were doing before. Might be a little bit more challenging going forward to achieve those returns with interest rates coming down, but I do think there's some opportunities, and I think that's something we could assess too, to try to lock in some rates for a little bit longer, because most of it isn't a variable rate fund. So that, you know, if there's an opportunity to put some and get rates locked in, that might help our forecast for next year.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anything for John? Okay, thanks, John, for being here. We'll move on to our reports. First up is the architectural review with Cheryl.
Good morning. I was going to just touch on some of the things that it seems that are being missed when ARC or any changes are being done to the interior of the property. And I was going to go to the residence center. Let me see if my residence center is still up. I was going to go to my residence center. Just so everybody knows, we need to have changes both to the interior and the exterior notified to the ARC committee, just so that we keep record. It really helps to know when somebody's updating flooring or doing any carpet changes. Obviously, anything that needs a building permit is a definite, has to go through us and possibly has to go through the board for approval. But we keep all of that so that future residents and just so us as a property HOA know what's being done and how the upkeep of the property is. And it seems like I think people are missing this step, that they're not doing these. And we have them, Gary's moved them all to the architectural portion of our site. And there's quite a few forms. And just so everybody knows, we realize that it's kind of confusing having so many forms here. But what we're planning on doing in the future is updating these to be more 2026 into what Kiowa wants from us, as well as what helps the owners, and making it into one PDF document that you guys would be able to do. But when you're doing the ARC request, you have to actually read all of these that are in here, and you have to fill all of them out. Some of them, if it's extensive work, have to be signed by the contractor who's doing work on your building. If building permits are needed, then we need to make sure that Bobby's able to inspect during the certain dynamics of the project to make sure that everything's correct before walls are closed, to make sure that nothing's hindering any of the other units in the building. Being that we're a condo complex, it's not like owning a home where you go in and you're just doing work to yours. Sometimes when you're doing work, you interfere with your neighbors and you may not realize it, and your people that are working on your property might not realize it. Electrical lines are tied into other electrical lines. It can stop having your neighbor's lights or something imperative like the refrigerator to work if something's done out of order. Plumbing as well. The plumbing, if you guys mess with your plumbing and it interferes with your neighbor's plumbing, they could end up having leaks or floods. So it's really imperative that we keep an eye on this. And it's not that we're trying to micromanage anybody's changes. We realize the building's old, and we know that there's a need to update all the units, and that a lot of people that are coming in really want to modernize and add new features to their places. And we love that. That's what this place needs. We need to get the buildings out of the 70s and into the current year looking, and all of the electrical and all the plumbing that way too. That's what we're doing as an HOA where we can. So we do want you guys to do this. We just need to be kept apprised of this. And Bobby's, my eyes and the board's eyes on the ground. Bobby's got extensive contractor knowledge, as I do myself. I'm a contractor in Arizona. I do huge home remodels, just like what Bobby's doing there. So our background's extensive. It's not that we're putting an eye on it and we don't know what we're doing. We're just making sure that everything's done correctly. So any future changes to any of the units on the property, and I'm hoping that people are not watching this, that we can maybe, Gary, if anybody ask them to watch the board meeting so they realize this, they need to go into Buildium, into the residence section, into documents, into the architectural forms, and they need to go through every single one of these. And as I said, even if it's just paint and carpet, just do the ARC request. It's so easy. If it's something simple that doesn't need to be reviewed by the board, we just automatically approve it. If it's going to be more extensive, then Bobby and my knowledge can be really helpful to both you and the contractor. So we welcome these questions.
Can
Stacy,
I say something? Yeah, can I
Yes.
jump real fast?
Sure.
So in our covenants, it says every remodel has to go before the art committee. And the art committee was effectively here, it's Cheryl as art committee and Bobby as our director of maintenance, would then decide, does this need to have board approval? Our art document says any remodel with exterior work, which belongs to the association, or interior structure, plumbing, electric, has to have board approval. So Cheryl and Bobby would look at the scope of your project and they would say, okay, you're going to have board approval, or, oh, this is just, surface, paint, carpet, whatever. You don't need board approval. You're approved to proceed now. It's imperative that every remodel be fully documented and held to a standard of whether or not it needs board approval.
Stace,
Yes.
I didn't realize, Gary, I'm going to share my screen. Sorry, I was moving around on my computer and I realize now that I didn't share my screen so nobody saw where I was going. Unless, Gary, you want to go to the Buildium section and show it, but I can definitely share my screen and then go to it. So going back here is the document section. And if you go back one.
Hold on, Gary's getting you up. Okay, now we can see.
Okay, so you go to the document section, which is on the left-hand side, and it's actually the very first one. And when you open it up, there's the documents here. So there's actually 4 individual sections that have to be read and filled out right now. But as I said, we'll condense this so that it's all one document, which should make it easier. But every one of these documents is pertinent to anything that's done on the interior of the property, just so that you understand the tie-ins that can be connected to your neighbors, that your contractor also understands this. So that is where it is. I'm going to stop sharing now. Did anybody have any questions about this? I know that I've had a couple of owners, and I do want to say thank you to the people who have done the doorbells. That's another thing. When you guys submit paperwork to us, somebody just recently submitted for a doorbell that is something that can be fast tracked. And they sent the picture of the doorbell they would be installing. When you just say you're going to be doing an exterior doorbell, there are only 2 that we have approved, and it's due to the color, and we want them to match with the existing property. So I can't just get an ARC request that says want new doorbell. I need to have the model number and a picture of it in those documents so that we have record of it, so that nobody is putting up something that hasn't been previously approved.
So Cheryl, what are the 2 doorbells that are, I think it's, what is it? Ring and Nest?
Yeah, Bobby's got that. When they ask us, we have a sheet that shows the 2 doorbells, but they just have to tell us which one they're doing. Mm-hmm.
And the color that's allowed.
Yeah, the color is the brown. Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay. I got a general question on the, so what, if someone has to have a toilet replaced or a water heater, does that have to be submitted to ARC?
That's general maintenance. You might want to let Bobby know, just so he knows. A lot of times water has to be shut off in your unit. If the angle stops are bad and they break, you're going to have a crisis. That could cause a crisis for your neighbors. So it's always nice to alert them if you're doing something like that. But that's common maintenance. That's not a remodel. That's common maintenance within a unit. So, but you just want to make sure BHP is aware in case there are further complications. And I know Bobby can attest to this. Sometimes we have further complications from that kind of stuff, and it leads to other units. So we just want to make sure we're on standby.
Got it.
That's especially important if you're having weekend work done, because Bobby doesn't have real maintenance staff on the weekends. So we want to make sure that that kind of thing is done during the week so that Bobby and his team are on site. Bobby, do you have any comments?
No, sounds good.
I want to say that I've done a red line of the contractor policy based on changes that have come up in conversation with Bobby recently. I'll send that around to the board for comments. I've gotten Cheryl and Bobby's comments. There are some things that need updating, like, for example, the contractor does not go to the front desk to get a card key for the unit. It's an old document. So, but then I would say the juiciest updates are that we have wording that matches the ARC policy. The contractor policy just says you'll need board approval if you're doing exterior work. That's not the case. We, as discussed, we need board approval if there are certain interior work being done too. We want to add specifics about if they're going to be fire sprinkler contractors. It currently just says a licensed fire sprinkler contractor, but we've run into some licensed contractors whose work isn't great. And so we want that to be our sprinkler contractor or one known to our director of maintenance to be a reliable contractor familiar with our property. We want to mention that intermittent inspections will be performed as needed. And also that projects can be red tagged, which means brought to a halt if the proper channels are not worked through with the association. So those are the biggest things. John.
Yeah, John Mills, Unit 202. So, and it's just been a while since I've had to submit a scope of work, but my understanding in the past is that you were charged to submit a scope of work, but if there something like a cosmetic change that's automatically approved, is there a charge for it? And unless it has to go to the board, or if it goes to the board, is there a charge?
If you read through the documents clearly explain what the charges are, their inspection fees, and then there's a monthly fee for doing remodeling. So that's all in there. We have that all incorporated in our documents. If you're changing out your toilet, that's not going to be a charge. You're putting on a doorbell, no. But if you're doing real work in your place, then the HOA does charge. And if there's an inspection that's needed, there are charges. And like I said, those are outlined in the documents.
Right.
And
I was just curious, like, if I paint my walls, I just think getting charged $300 just to say, okay, go for it. I just wanted to make sure there was a delineation between the two. So
I think most of the fees relate to the bigger remodels, but we'll be reviewing the fees as well because they are from 2007, I think. Maybe 2011.
Yeah, they're very old.
And the other thing I want to add to the document is currently our contractor policy just has a final inspection where the final inspection is documented. But if we're doing intermittent inspections, each inspection should be documented and the results. So they're available for the owner and the board to have in Buildium. So we're just gonna build out that policy a little bit, but just to let the board know to look out for that because it's something that I'll be circulating.
thank you.
Do we have any other questions about this? Okay, thanks everybody and thank you, Cheryl. We have the property update from BHP.
Thanks, Stacy. On the property lately, we've been continually working on riser boxes. Has been a big project this fall with preventative maintenance to keep them in good condition, make sure nothing freezes, and other issues that arise. We've also seen an uptick in owner-related work orders, which is great to BHP, which means owners are reaching out and using our service. Pine cone sewer lines. We're, like Stacy mentioned and Joe mentioned, we're going to be doing a lining project starting probably in April. Big Cat will be down here to clean and line those vertical or those horizontals that go to the main out in the parking lot. While they're here, they're going to camera Gamble Oaks lines to see what conditions they're in and possibly talk about doing those next year. We're also going to be working on a sprinkler project, a sprinkler head replacement project, probably around Q3. with Fox Valley Fire. We will initially start planning to replace the sprinkler heads in the lodge first. We're working on to see what that's going to look like. Basically, the sprinkler heads will unscrew, and they screw in new heads. They have to be replaced every 25 years. Let's see what else.
Can I jump in on that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about this at budget time, that the sprinkler head project, each head, if it doesn't have complications, should be between $90 and $120. That's going to be assessed to the owner of the unit. And this is because a lot of people have already paid to have their heads replaced when they've done remodels. Not everybody needs the sprinkler heads replaced. So the project is going to involve going in, doing an inventory of that area by unit, which ones need replacing, and if they don't need replacing, are you guys going to date the current sprinklers so we know when they age out?
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to build an inventory of the age of everybody's fire sprinkler heads. And at the time, if you're identified as somebody whose sprinkler heads are aged out and they need replacing, they will give an estimate and we'll do a special assessment, get the funds so that then our sprinkler contractor can order those parts. Some are going to be more complicated. Bobby explained that some people have done remodels and their sprinkler head, based on the work on their ceiling, is not to code. It's not dropped down enough.
Correct.
It's too nestled up into the ceiling now. So when they replace that, it's going to be complicated. If that's the case, your assessment might be a little bit more than 90 to 120 for that sprinkler head. So, but we're going to start with building up an inventory, identifying by unit how many heads need to be replaced, doing a special assessment, and then working with our sprinkler contractor when he gets the heads. Now, the sprinkler contractor said we could do this project. It doesn't all have to be done this year. And what Bobby recommended, based on the time commitment that it takes, is to start in the lodge. It will have the most. And then for this year, and then next year, do the replacements for the outlying complexes. Do we have any board member comments or questions about that?
I have just one thing, as you pointed out, Stacy, not just the nestling, just so people know, if you replaced your sprinkler heads and your painter came back in and maybe sprayed your ceiling, if there's paint on a sprinkler head, the sprinkler head is no longer viable. So that would be a sprinkler head that would have to be replaced, just so everybody's aware.
Oh, that's good to know. I hadn't heard that before.
Yep.
Okay, so, and I'm sure we have that. I'm sure there are cases that we will find where a sprinkler head is painted over. So thank you for that. Okay, so that's the plan going forward. And if all board members are understanding of that and have no questions, we'll just proceed that way. Okay, thanks, Bobby.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Last thing I want to talk about is angle stops. I'm sure all of you are aware of what an angle stop is. If you're not, it's the water shutoff valve, say below your toilet or underneath your kitchen sink or your vanity. During our PMs this year and last year, we looked at those in the units that we did PMs in and made an inventory of which ones were bad and which ones weren't. If you're unable to shut the water off in your unit, if you have something go on and you can't shut the water off at your angle stop, some units have a shut off in the condo above the water heater, some don't. If you don't have a shut off inside your condo, you're going to have to go underneath and shut the water off if you can't operate your angle stop. So we started a angle stop project on property with the people that we did the PMs first. We will reach out to you and see if you want those replaced. So we go in, shut the water off, and we'll replace your angle stops and your water supply lines to make sure that those are functioning and your supply lines are new, because some of the stuff that we found is really old and definitely needs replaced. So I hope owners will keep that in the back of their mind and either reach out to us or we'll be contacting you guys.
This water's so hard on these things. It's
Yep.
Oh,
It's pretty crazy.
so
Hey,
that's,
Bobby, This is Scott. Just a quick question. I know I participate in the PM and you are replacing mine. Are we making that an optional, or at some point are we just going to say, hey, we need to at least inspect all of them?
Right now, it's optional. But I would love it to be a mandatory situation, but we'll see how this goes. So far, we've had a good response.
Okay. Well, I guess what we can do is just, do the gap analysis once we finish this and see what's left.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're starting out as optional, and the PMs were the first round. If anybody doesn't know that term, preventative maintenance, BHP offers an annual preventative maintenance program to go in and do maintenance in your unit for certain things. And that's where they did this inventory, but a lot of people don't sign up for the PM. And so the next thing they're going to do is send out a communication asking people to opt into this. And why it's important. And why it's important is you could potentially flood your unit and the units around you if you have a water problem and you can't turn it off. And then you're going to have insurance claims to not only repair your unit, but the damage done to others. It's very important. So I agree, Scott. Let's see what our participation is. And for the remaining, we might have to make it mandatory. Does anybody have any thoughts on that, board members?
I just know the times we've had leaks, the headaches that it has caused for the board and the homeowner, and the discussions that have ensued have been an absolute pain in the ass. So I think people should be required to do PM at some mandatory, cadence. And something like this that could cause damage. I can see the logic behind having it mandatory, especially if we know it hasn't been looked at in a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I agree, Scott. If Bobby says do it, I say do it. Pretty simple.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a couple floods, and every time it's pointing fingers, and is it my responsibility, your responsibility?
Right.
Insurance is mad. It's just a pain. So
Those standard angle stop valves that are under your sinks and behind your toilet and everything. I mean, they're not robust products. They stick. If they're not, turned and, moved back and forth over the years, they can freeze shut and then you can't turn them off. I mean, they're really a weak point, and replacing them either regularly or upon inspection it should be done.
I think Bobby probably follows my same guideline. Whenever I'm doing any plumbing in anybody's house, it's a mandatory that anything from outside the wall, angle stops, and all of the plumbing supply lines have to be changed out because those things corrode and they start failing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a maintenance item on a home.
Yeah, if you're replacing a faucet, replace the supply line and the angle stop. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question. I'm a owner, and I wonder if you have, and I'm sorry if this is not the place to ask this. We bought a unit that was fully refurnished, and I wonder what the possibility is to get sort of the paperwork that was submitted to the board for the person who previously owned the unit, or if I'm assumingly everything went through the board correctly to remodel a unit in the lodge. What would you suggest for knowing how well all of these updates were done on a remodel?
Laura, could you please email that question to the board and the business office?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
And just, that's the reason, Laura, that we're trying to have this going forward, because it might not have been as clear in the past.
Yeah, that's why we're trying to capture everything in our software now.
That's great. Okay, thank you. I'll email.
Okay, thank you. So on the angle stops, currently it's optional. Is the board saying that they would like this to be a mandatory project?
I think, again, I think we should let Bobby get through what he's got to get through, see what we have left, and then we can discuss it.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
that means we move this topic to the May agenda to see what we're left with, because that gives Bobby time, I think, to finish the PM replacements and then to open it up property-wide for people to opt in. And so by the May board meeting, you should be complete with that part, and we see how many condos we have left.
Yeah, and I think that also he'll have some real world input as to what the hell he's saying. So, I mean, if it looks like it's a problem and it's a problem with a lot of units, then we'll know that it's a good idea to get it done and make it mandatory.
And being that we're just bringing this up today, Stacy, this will hopefully make owners look underneath their sinks so that they can start seeing if they've got corrosion. It's kind of I don't think that we start right away. Everybody needs to kind of take a look, and I know everybody's not up there right now.
Oh, but Cheryl, you forget there are owners like me who I wouldn't know what I'm looking at, honestly.
We'll send you pictures.
Don't laugh.
You know when they're bad, trust me.
Well, and another consideration is we know who's at the who comes to the property on a regular basis and who doesn't, and that might play into how we move forward on this. Because, I mean, I haven't been up there in months. Renters aren't looking at it. If I'm not there, nobody's looking at it, which was why I opted to the PM.
Yeah, me too.
One thing I will say is I've offered to a couple owners on property, and I'll give the information to Gary and he can post it, maybe in a newsletter or something. Amazon has these little water sensors, and you put them underneath your toilet, by your water heater, under your sink, and they program to your phone. And if they get wet, they send you a text message to your phone. It's pretty crazy, and it's cheap insurance if you have a leak.
Bobby, I don't know if you know this, but one thing I've asked Gary about is adding a maintenance page or section to the newsletter, the quarterly newsletter, where you could put stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that any tips or any hey, upcoming projects to watch out for, here's why, would be really useful. Or, you know, call us if you want your interior windows cleaned when you come back to property in the summer. There are just lots of things, and so that might be a good place for that if you guys get that going.
Since we're on maintenance, I wanted Gary to show some pictures. We talked about cast iron a lot. We fixed some cast iron in a unit, and this is typically what we see when we fix cast iron, we replace it. It's usually pretty bad.
Oh.
I don't know how anything goes through most of these pipes we pull apart, but that's generally what it looks like.
Pretty good. Probably what mine looks like.
I wish I hadn't seen it.
Yeah.
God.
And all it takes is for somebody to flush a handy wipe down a line like that, and it's not gonna go through.
So that's the first thing we tell people if you're going to do a remodel is if your cast iron plumbing hasn't been replaced, replace it now. So.
Absolutely. That's horrible.
And Stacy got a tour of some riser closets this last week.
I
So
did. That was
good.
very informative. It was impressive. Yeah. I encourage any board members who come to the property to go check that out and have a real understanding of what our maintenance team is doing when you hear the word takes to maintain our current infrastructure. They're doing a great job. Gary,
I make two comments.
You
One, go back to the fire sprinkler project.
Mhm.
Tell people how many sprinkler heads there are in the just in the common areas. You remember that number?
4,200.
4,200 sprinkler heads in the common areas. That doesn't count units. Secondly, when you do the angle stops, let's say for a toilet or even for a sink, will you be inspecting the supply lines?
Yes,
as well?
they get replaced as well.
Okay, because Greg, you remember last year.
Oh, yeah.
We had a situation where a smoke alarm went off in a unit. When I went over there was no smoke or anything. It was because of the humidity that was pervading the entire unit because the supply line to the toilet, the upstairs toilet, had failed.
It was actually the fitting on the bottom of the.
Was it the fitting?
It just snapped.
Just snapped. These things do corrode. Flooded the whole place. Upstairs, downstairs, they wound up spending a significant amount of money to fix that. So.
yeah, it's sounding like more and more like it doesn't need to be an option. Okay. Anything else from the property update?
That's it.
Thank you. Reminder, all of our association maintenance is billed to us. Owner maintenance is now billed directly to the owners. Be very attentive when you've had maintenance done to watch for the invoices. Mine come on my phone as well as my email. They will not be coming through on your association invoices in Buildium. They are separate. So just everybody be attentive to handling those transactions in a timely manner.
Can I add to that, Stacy? Because both of you and I have used BHP. Jessica and Bobby make it so easy. They send a QuickBook link. You're able to either use your bank account or your credit card. You don't have to mail in a check. You can do it all on your computer. If you have to mail in a check, then you can, but it's super easy using that QuickBook program that Bobby and Jessica use.
Oh yeah, I get the text and it says click here to see invoice. I see the invoice and I click pay and it's done. I mean, it takes me more time to make a cup of coffee than it does to pay my expense. All right, we have a new business line, which is a suggestion that originated with our staff on moving around some office space, and I was going to let Bobby and Elisa speak to that.
Yeah, I'll go first.
And Gary has the drawings if those are needed.
Put those up there.
We can put it up. I'm just going to read this email real quick. Elisa and I would like to discuss the importance of having a dedicated professional business office space. Such as a space is critical for addressing private business matters in a confidential environment. Professional office should be distinct from private staff areas and designed to minimize distractions from unrelated conversations. This focus will enhance our productivity and ensure sensitive discussions are handled securely and respectfully. The current area will have a space for owner relations and a business office supervisor. This area will also remain the break and kitchen private area for staff. We will no longer have owners or vendors in this private area. The small office at the entrance to the back of the office will be set up as a small meeting area with a small desk and a few chairs. This will be utilized as an area to meet with new prospective owners and contractors and vendors. The area currently occupied by Julie Glenn will have 2 desks, one for the business manager, one for BHP manager or future GM. We envision a small seating area for owners, visitors, and vendors. The area currently occupied by the security staff will remain until no longer needed for alarm monitoring. We have a vision of a nice seating area with an electric fireplace. This, of course, is just an idea, and removing the front desk area will be costly, but we hope to make that area look nice in the interim. So when you guys, the board continues to think about the front desk being gone, we just have an idea of what we could do with that. But when we get closer to that, I would suggest, I've talked to an interior decorator I know in around here that does a lot of work for Glacier. She's going to come by when she has a chance and take a look at the space and maybe do some drawings and give the board some ideas of what she envisions. As far as the office space, I don't think it's any secret Julie has wanted to move to the front area for a while. Elisa and I would like to have the other office if it's available. So that's kind of where we're at.
So Julie wants to move to the small room off the lodge where we used to a few years ago have a coffee service. That room is almost always empty. She would not do any remodeling or changes in that room other than just furniture. And she would want to frame a glass door and window. So she had a lockable office, and she is willing to do that at her cost. So then if she moved there, and that was the first request I had, was Julie moving there. Then Bobby and Elisa came to me and said they really, to have 4 people in the existing business office is just, it's not a workable workspace. And so then Bobby and Elisa would move to Julie's current office, and thereby spreading out our staff a little bit, giving Bobby and Elisa a lockable space, and Carlos and Gary would stay where they are. The front desk where Bobby currently sits, that is what you guys are talking about, creating a reception room or a meeting room for new owners and one-on-one conversations. So this that we're looking at is the existing lobby, and that bottom left corner seating area is the room where Julie is talking about moving her office space. And this is just, I had asked if you guys are envisioning this, what do you propose for the lobby space? Now Bobby's bringing in a decorator to get ideas, but this is just something they charted out. I mean, essentially what we're looking at doing in the lobby space eventually, but it would be at talk of cost, is just a really nice reception entry lobby. Sort of like if you go over to Mine Shaft, when you walk into the Mine Shaft Prospector building, they have a nice walk-in lobby. And the real estate office would be down in that lower left corner. What else do we have, Gary? Oh,
Any
that's
discussion as part of that to clean up the cluster that is our mail area?
well, yeah, that's something to be considered. And I mentioned that last fall, just we need some sort of mail room. It would be nice to have, but it's all the front desk is still in existence because they have to watch the fire panels. So this isn't, certainly not part of 2026 as far as updating the lobby. We're eventually going to have to do something with that space. So these were just their ideas. And this is the what Julie would do to the that front lobby office, the proposed space. She would be putting up a glass door and glass window that resembles this at her cost. And the other factor is currently Julie Glenn. I always want to call her Julie Houston. Julie Glenn is her current lease goes through this September, and it is $500 a quarter that she's paying, which is below the market rate. I met with Julie and her boss and the owner of her agency just to kind of hear their input. I said, this is a developing story as far as this front lobby goes. And so I don't believe we would be doing another 3-year lease because we don't know how we're going to use that space. I don't know what we're able to do with that space though, because it's actually Glacier's space. And so if we were going to do any remodeling in the lobby, I don't know if we could take down that wall and open up the space. If it has to stay there, that wall has to stay there. Why not let it be an office? I mean, it's just so I had a lot of questions about that. But that is the current proposal. It would benefit Julie, but most importantly, it would benefit our staff. And I think that, that's what we're trying to be supportive of.
Hey, we don't have a formal lease or any kind of expiration with Glacier on that space, right? It's just our space to use, or is there actual some kind of lease?
Scott, it's in the 2017 agreement that we made with Glacier.
Right.
And that extended from 2017, that extended for 35 years.
So it's tied to the 50-year thing that we used to have.
Yes.
Okay.
So when that expires, I don't think any of us will be sitting around talking about board decisions.
No, I was just more worried if we were going to do something that we risk Glacier coming back and trying to retract it and say we want it back. But it doesn't sound like that. So.
And it's been raised. Do we really benefit from having an agent on the property? Do we need that in today's real estate market where, a lot of people just go to Zillow? And I feel that, you have to look at the other side. Does it hurt? If we're not using that space, and if we bring the rent up to current value and do a new lease, then it's just an income source for us. Otherwise, it remains a room that's dark and no one's using. And so I can't say, I'm not a real estate expert. So I can't quote facts about how much more successful you are if you have somebody on property. But I can say that we benefit financially from it. And you know, a few $1,000s is better than $0, but mostly my support of this goes to helping our staff have a better working environment.
My 2 cents is I think the staff needs a better working environment. The other is that Julie can have that space. I know we're in a contract now, but she just needs to realize that the rent is going to increase if she moves there because it needs to be at market price.
Market price for the new square footage. And I would say a 1-year contract, maybe 2, but not 3, just so it gives us, you know, we're not going to be redecorating that in 2026, maybe sometime in 2027, but that gives us the ability to make changes in the master plan. But you know, so I wouldn't want to do a 3-year contract.
Stacy, whatever it takes to help the staff, I'm for helping the staff, getting them their environment that they want. I would say, you know, Julie's been a really good partner. I appreciate that. And if there's a way we can accommodate her and it all works, I agree keeping it 1 year, maybe 2, which I'm sure she would be amenable to. But whatever helps our staff, I'm in.
Thanks, Greg. I did a AI search. On one hand, I'm petrified of what AI is doing to our world, but on another hand, I find it extremely convenient. And it said the rates in Durango, or I did La Plata County, commercial rental rates were between $14 and $21. And then it went into a little depth about whether utilities are paid separately or included. So I'll send the board that information and we can come up with a final amount. And Lori, I saw your comment about a general store. That I can see that being very convenient and helpful. However, what that brings with having to do inventory and, you know, keep up with expiration dates and sales taxes and everything else, that we're not equipped to open something like that right now. Our board.
We've talked about that multiple times, and every time we've come back to how the heck are we going to monitor and maintain it?
Well, and keep up with the license
Right.
requirements of what you're selling. You know, I would absolutely love it if they had wine for sale here, bottles of wine I could go pick up without having to drive to Trimble. But I just it is a great idea until you really get into the details of what that would involve, and we don't have that capability right now. Okay, so I'll follow up with recommendations for a new lease, but I think right now that this looks like we're all in agreement that to support our staff and a long-term partner, we are in favor of this as long as we can work out lease details.
There are some questions in the chat. Do you want to address those?
I can address the questions in the chat. Okay, thank you, Norm. Yes, I think we all think so. I go in the office and I get brain damage. It's crazy having 4 people in that space.
This question came while we were talking about water.
I can't answer that question.
Okay.
Carol, I don't know what bill you're referring to when a bill seems excessive. if you want to send an email, you're welcome to email me what, details of what you're talking about.
A
Well, it's a
maintenance bill.
Yeah, it should be
Yeah.
addressed with BHP.
Yeah, that's it to be addressed with BHP. I had previously addressed the small stores, please remember, okay. Scott, good point on package area. It's a cluster. I would. That's the board discussion, right? Okay. Norm, we've tried to have packages delivered to the doors. And we've actually called the UPS management, and most of them come, I think, from Farmington. And we've spoken to the managers there saying you need to tell your people to deliver to the doors. And they just aren't. So we don't have a whole lot of control. We'll just come out and suddenly there are packages. And it's just something we haven't been able to get them to change. We have tried.
Stacy, I have a question on that topic.
Okay.
And I don't know if, I'm sure this has been investigated in the past, but could be worth revisiting is, you know, when I lived in Denver and I was living in an apartment, we had automated mail boxes that, you know, you get a code to your phone or your email. The UPS would put all the packages in there and you just go in, you hit your code and the corresponding box opens. I know that's obviously not inexpensive, but that maybe that's something that could be a longer term solution to package security. I think that's the biggest thing. And knowing that you're getting your own packages as of right now, they're just all kind of lumped together. But I don't know what kind of cost. I mean, I have zero idea what kind of cost that would incur, but
you and me both.
Just something that could be considered as a project down the road.
Stacey, I looked into that last year and it's extremely expensive, and everybody would have to be on board. You have to put in the lock, you have to find the space to put it. Then once you put it in, you have to see what box sizes work and accommodate. And with as many units as we have, we'd have to have so many. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the boxes aren't going to be left outside of that. It happens all the time with mailboxes in communities where you have a locked parcel box and they still, Amazon or whoever's delivering, if they're not familiar, they just stick them. I mean, Norm, how many times do I get your guys' mail? Even our mail person delivers our mail to the wrong thing. It's hard to keep track of. A mailroom with everything organized would probably be our best and the least expensive.
And a mailroom, if we could do a mailroom, we could have a keypad lock with a general code for owners to go in and get their things, but we would not have a mailroom employee to supervise if you took the right package or somebody else's. It's just something that there's a lot of liability unless we invest a ton of money to come up with a solution. I also thought if we did a mailroom and then we had signage, delivery drivers, you know, what to do with packages. I personally, since I'm not here year round, I'm kind of glad my packages aren't left on my porch. Now, when somebody does leave one on my porch, I have a neighbor pick it up because I watch my tracking, and if somebody's left something on the porch, I get it off my porch. But that's something other owners have brought up to me, is I don't really want my stuff sitting out in the open for anybody to grab. So there are some people who like that things are left at the lodge, some people who don't. But we haven't been able to get the drivers to do any differently. I think FedEx delivers to the door pretty well.
We're stuck with a centralized delivery and we just need to manage around it. I mean, there's boxes come in a jillion different sizes. There's no way that we can have them go into every unit. Then we'd have people screaming that it went, you know, that they didn't get their stuff and it disappeared. I mean, I think it's a no-win situation. We just need to solve for the best way to handle it.
I think everybody needs to really understand how to use their tracking on their phones. The second a package is delivered, you know it now. So just get in your car, go to the lodge or look outside your porch, figure out where that package is. Don't wait days. I keep an eye on every package because even back in Texas, we have terrible porch thievery going on. So I know when something's coming and I wait for my dog to bark and then I look at my phone and yep, it's there. So to monitor your deliveries, it's the best we have right now. Okay, so I see a couple recommendations that they're talking about a store with third-party vendor. You know, there is just so much that goes into that. And then we get into our insurance. And if we have somebody on site that's selling you know, different things. It's a huge matter to do. So, I just think right now we don't have the capability or the specialized knowledge to take that on.
Would you want a hot dog from here? $1.50? Imagine how good that would still be.
Hey, Chad, can you turn off your,
Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
okay, I think that's all the questions, Gary.
Yep.
Okay. All right, did anybody else on the board have anything today? All right. Then I move that we adjourn.
Got my second.
All in favor?
Aye. Sorry.
Greg, for the notes, Trisha may have had to drop off and I have her proxy, so she is in favor as well. Thanks, everybody, for attending, especially at the earlier hour. It really helps accommodate the cross-country time zones we have going on. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone. Good seeing y'all.
See you,
Bye, you
Scott.
guys.
See ya.